Hello, everyone. My name is Stephanie Eldred, and I'm with the Center for Best Practices. Thank you for joining us today for the Year-Round Meals, Connecting Summer and After-School Meals webinar. We would like to thank Arby's for their generous support of our work. And before we get started, I would like to cover a few housekeeping items. First off, attendees are in listen-only mode, and we will be recording this webinar today. We will take questions at the end of the webinar, so please use the question box for your questions, and we will read them out loud or respond to them individually. The webinar recording and resources will be sent later this week. So, without further ado, I would like to introduce my colleague Derek Lambert to start the webinar.
Stephanie, thank you so much, and thank you for managing this webinar series that began back in January. For those of you who have been with us for a while, this is the final installment of the Schools Out, Foods In Summer Meals webinar series, and we're going to be covering year-round meals today, and we have a packed agenda. We're going to start by introducing the topic, have a colleague, Carolyn Waite, that I will introduce momentarily. We'll then look at USDA and hear from USDA staff and around support for streamlining and year-round service. We have some stories from the field, some great partners from Wisconsin and Minnesota that are going to talk about both community-based and school-based partnerships. And we're going to hear from leadership of Y of USA around some of the exciting work they're doing in this space. We'll then have time for Q&A with our panelists. And then we will point you to where you can identify resources related to the webinar series, and we'll wrap up the session and again the series that has begun in January. So thanks so much everyone for being with us. I am your host, Derek Lambert. I am a program manager with the No Kid Hungry Center for Best Practices. Those of you who have been on the calls, we've been working here with Stephanie for the last several months. This is the final installment. We have recordings of earlier webinars that began in January, and they're available for viewing on the Center for Best Practices events page. I'll mention that again at the end of the webinar so folks know how to access it. The recordings and the PowerPoint presentations are available for review. So we hope that in addition to today's webinar, if you haven't had a chance to join us previously, you'll have a look at those and make use of them in the weeks and months ahead. For today's final webinar, we also wanted to start thinking about what comes next when summer ends. What are the building blocks of year-round service? For that, I'm excited to introduce Carolyn Waite, Senior Program Manager with the No Kid Hungry Center for Best Practices, and my close colleague. Carolyn manages our work around after-school meals. Carolyn, for our listeners out there who have been focused, since January, we've been working in this webinar series to get folks ramped up for their summer meal programs, to get them excited about provide the tools that they need to really reach kids in the summertime. And here we are. It's summer, right? This is we would think, the sole focus of our work at this time. Why is now a good time to transition to a conversation about after-school meals?
Great. Thanks, Derek, and thanks for allowing me to join you today for this great topic. Well, as you know, focusing on summer meals since January, it takes a while to plan for a really successful program and successful implementation. So I know you are all very busy right now with implementing your summer programs, but waiting until August or September to think about your after-school meals program is going to leave your kids with quite a gap in service, and so it'll take a while to get up and running with after-school meals. It varies a lot from state to state, but that application can take, usually at least a month, although it can, again, vary. Some states do require pre-application training, so it doesn't hurt to really get started thinking about this now, finding out what those requirements are in your state, and then giving yourself plenty of time to think through the logistics of how you're going to run that program once the school year starts, and obviously just different aspects of your programs and, maybe some sites run or not run during the school year. So it's good to think about that now. So we know it can be overwhelming and intimidating to take on a new program, but we're so happy to have these great panelists with us here today to offer some guidance and tips and encouragement for you.
So Carolyn, what I'm hearing is, we talk about summer meals. Summer meals planning doesn't start in May. It doesn't even start in March or April, really. It starts in November, December, January. We got to plan ahead for a summer program. You're saying we need to do the same for after-school meals.
Exactly.
That's great. Thanks so much. And to do that today, we have a great panel of speakers that I'd like to just take a moment and recognize. We will hear from them each in turn, but we have Andrea Farmer, who is Chief of the Community Meals Branch Policy and Program Development Division of Child Nutrition Programs with the United States Department of Agriculture, Food and Nutrition Service. We also have Stacy McDaniel, Project Manager of the Anti-Hunger Initiative of YMCA of USA. Jenny Meldy, who is the Director of Organization and Leadership Development from La Crosse Area Family YMCA. And Michelle Carroll, the Business Manager of the Minneapolis Public Schools in Minnesota. So we want to dive right in. We've got a lot to cover, and we've had the good fortune to speak with each of these folks ahead of time, and we know they have a lot of exciting information to share. So go ahead and, Andrea, we're really excited to hear about the USDA perspective on opportunities for year-round feeding through at-risk after-school meals and summer food service programs. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Derek, and I'm very, very pleased to be here to join all of you and talk about this, a subject that is really close to my own heart. So I think, and let me have the next slide, please. So I think many of you would already be aware that for many years the primary focus of child nutrition programs has been the National School Lunch Program. However, especially lately, USDA is working hard to ensure that all children have access to healthy meals and snacks year-round, both within and outside of the school setting. So the Summer Food Service Program, SFSP, although it's been a fully authorized program since 1975, I think it still remains one of the best kept secrets because many families still don't know about it. And participation in SFSP has substantially increased over the past 5 or 6 years, but it still reaches only a small percentage of children who receive free and reduced price meals during the school year. Now, the Child and Adult Care Food Program, CACFP, has always been able to feed children in after-school programs, but until the at-risk component of CACFP was established, the centers were limited to serving children 12 years and under. So with the expansion of at-risk nationwide, that allows children to be served up to 18 years and under in after-school settings. So between those two programs, the CACFP at-risk and the SFSP, we really have the best chance to make sure that children receive nutritious meals even when they are not in school. And moving on to the next slide, I just want to talk a little bit about the benefits of year-round meal programs. So we know that many CACFP sponsors are eligible to become SFSP sponsors to feed children year-round. And many existing SFSP sites are well positioned to offer after-school meals during the school year through CACFP. So organizations can benefit from having the ability to hire year-round staff, that's important, to have a continuous flow of reimbursements, providing additional financial stability, and also recognition in the community as a stable source of services. Communities can benefit by having a partner that provides year-round nutrition services for children and brings increased federal funds into the local economy. And states benefit as well from streamlined approval processes. But for USDA, the biggest benefit is having experienced sponsors being able to operate more than one child nutrition program. So on the next slide, before I move on to some of the flexibilities that are available for operating both CACFP at-risk and SFSP, I just want to do a quick comparison of the two programs to show how they're similar and how they're different. So this first slide here, in terms of program intent, there is a little bit of a difference in the purpose of the two programs. So you can think of it that CACFP at-risk provides a program that gives care, that is providing care to children, where the SFSP is a program that provides meals to children. So with the at-risk, that care is provided outside of school hours, after school, weekends, and holidays, but it does not include the summer. And then, of course, for SFSP, it is when school, they're providing meals when school is not in session over the summer. So right there, that just shows you how the two together make such a great combination for year-round feeding. In terms of the children that are served, both of them serve children that are from low-income areas or areas of poor economic need. But with the CACFP at risk, it is children that are participating in a program that is organized to primarily care for them. And with both of those programs, sponsoring organizations or sponsors can administer the program. CACFP at risk can also be administered by independent child care centers that work directly with state agencies. On the next slide, we'll take a look at eligibility. So again, I mentioned this before, but one thing that is similar or the same actually between the two of them is that they serve the same population, which is children that are ages 18 years and under, or any age of disabled, if they're disabled. Now the sites or locations of the programs, in both programs, those sites need to be area eligible, which means that at least 50% of the children in that area would be eligible for free or reduced price meals. But in at-risk, it is based only on school attendance data, where in SFSP it could be school or census area data. And in both of them, in terms of sponsors to administer the program, it could be schools, nonprofits, or for-profits if certain conditions are met. On the next slide, looking at reimbursement. So in both cases with both programs, they're reimbursed for 2 meal services per day. For the at-risk, it is 1 meal and 1 snack. And for summer, it could be 2 meals, which could be any combination except lunch and supper, or 1 meal and 1 snack. Both programs are reimbursed at the free rate for all meals and snacks served. Those reimbursement rates do differ a little bit. The SFSP rates are a little bit higher than the at-risk rates. And on the next slide, what we have here is what is maybe one of the bigger differences between the two programs is that in CACFP at-risk, again, I said that needs to be a program that is organized primarily to care for children, and those programs must provide organized, regularly scheduled activities and include educational or enrichment activities. Whereas in SFSP, the activities are not required. No activities are required, although they're certainly encouraged, and we do know that having activities at the sites, summer sites, does draw children into the site. So let's move on to the next slide and look at a little bit of a sponsor that would be transitioning from CACFP at-risk meals to serving meals through SFSP. So USDA has several flexibilities that can make that transition fairly easy. First, after-school centers have established area eligibility already through the use of school data, and that eligibility is valid for 5 years, and it can be used to determine eligibility in other child nutrition programs. So those sponsors do not have to reestablish the eligibility for their centers or sites if they transition to SFSP. CACFP institutions that are currently in good standing are not required to provide additional proof of financial and administrative capability when applying for the summer program. And to be considered in good standing, that means that they did not have any serious deficiencies declared in their most recent review cycle. If sponsors want to operate a summer program at the same sites or locations where they provide CACFP meal services, they may follow the application requirements for experienced sponsors and sites instead of those for new applicants, which is a little bit of a streamlined process. And then state agencies are strongly encouraged to enter into single agreements with sponsors operating more than one child nutrition program. That is already a requirement for school food authorities, but we encourage states to consider that with all of the child nutrition programs. So therefore, if a state agency administers both CACFP and SFSP, an SFSP sponsor that's interested in offering after-school meals through CACFP during the school year would be required only to sign an addendum to their existing SFSP agreement. And then that could be vice versa for a CACFP sponsoring organization that wanted to open summer sites. Now, it is a little bit trickier in states where CACFP and SFSP are administered by different state agencies. In that case, the organizations must submit applications to and enter into an agreement with those state agencies. However, FNS encourages those state agencies to work together to share information and streamline the application and agreement process. Okay, on to the next slide. We have a few more flexibilities for transitioning from CACFP to SFSP. In terms of health and safety inspections, the regulations require that summer sites have to meet state and local health and safety standards. But if those standards are the same as the CACFP at-risk standards, then the FSSP state agencies will accept an inspection from the CACFP institution. In addition, at-risk after-school meal sites in good standing are not required to attend training prior to submitting a summer application. However, this does not apply to the administrative staff. They are still required to attend sponsor training prior to beginning program operations. Under normal circumstances, SFSP sponsors are required to visit each site they oversee at least once during the first week of program operation. State agencies may waive this requirement I'm not sure what that was. State agencies may waive this requirement for sponsors in good standing. And sponsors may also have the option to follow the CACFP monitoring schedule year-round rather than follow separate schedules for both programs. So that streamlines their monitoring requirements. And lastly, excess funds may be used in the operation of either program. For example, if at the end of the school year, a sponsor has excess reimbursement from the CACFP at-risk after-school operations, those funds may be allocated towards allowable costs in SFSP. And then on to the next slide, let's take a little bit of a look at transitioning from SFSP to CACFP. So in this case, there are a few things that may be a little bit trickier, but they're certainly not insurmountable. So back to the health and safety inspections. So I said that where those health and safety inspection standards are the same for the at-risk after-school centers and SFSP sites, then in this case, CACFP state agencies may accept documentation of a current inspection obtained by a sponsor for SFSP. However, in some cases, those at-risk standards are more stringent than the summer standards, and if that's the case, then the more stringent standards for CACFP at risk would have to be met with a separate inspection. Now, if site eligibility at the summer site was established using school data, then area eligibility does not need to be reestablished for at-risk sites. However, if that site eligibility was based on census data, then additional documentation would need to be provided indicating that the site is area eligible based on school data too. To talk about the activities, I talked about that a little bit before. To operate CACFP at risk, sponsors will need to make sure they are operating a program that is caring for children outside of school hours and provides educational or enrichment activities that are open to all who attend the program. Now, children do not have to actually partake in the activities to receive a meal, but they should be in a supervised setting and should have the opportunity to participate in activities. So in other words, they need to be participating in the after-school program, but they do not have to participate in an individual activity. SFSP sponsors who are familiar with operating a USDA child nutrition program should not be required to attend training prior to submitting a CACFP application. However, just as I mentioned with the transition from CACFP to SFSP, sponsor administrative staff must be informed about program requirements and attend the necessary training. And then lastly, just to talk a little bit about meal service requirements and the meal pattern. Members of the food service staff who receive meal service training under the SFSP are not required to attend separate CACFP training on meal services. But I have a little caveat with that, which is that those of you who are familiar with our programs know that the meal pattern requirements for CACFP are more complicated than those for SFSP. So sponsors do need to make sure that their staff know and understand the requirements for the program that they are serving. And finally, my last slide. So that was my brief rundown on operating year-round feeding programs through CACFP, At-Risk Afterschool, and the Summer Food Service Program. And I just want to say that FNS encourages experienced organizations to take the leap and feed children year-round through both programs. So thank you so much. I appreciate being on the webinar to talk to you about this.
Andrea, thank you so much, and I know that is a lot of information that is incredibly helpful to our audience, and just appreciate you as well staying around for the Q&A. I feel like we may have a few questions based on some of what you shared, and we feel really grateful to have USDA on the call today to share this information and to answer any questions that may come up. So now we're going to transition and hear from some of our community partners. First off, we're going to hear from partners at the Y of USA. Stacy McDaniel is a project manager for the Anti-Hunger Initiative of YMCA of USA. We here at Share Our Strength know of Stacy's work and know that she and her team across the country are doing incredible work to reach children with both summer and after school meals as well as opportunities for learning. Stacy, thank you so much. We'd love to hear about your initiative and some of the work that's ongoing to make sure kids have access to both summer and after school meal programs.
Thank you, Derek, for having me today. Thanks, everyone, for listening in. I'm excited. A lot of good information has been shared. Andrea has given all of the information from the USDA. So I'd like to just bring a slightly different perspective as a provider of food programs. The YMCAs offer them across the country, and we offer grant fundings around those year-round meals. So we've been trying to really push that particular approach for several years now. So let's go ahead and change slides, and we'll dig in. So why are we doing this? Everyone on the phone is an advocate. We understand child hunger. We know that summer is an intense time of need, but that need doesn't go away during the school year either. And we know from research that hunger in the school can have lasting implications for kids. When kids are hungry, you just don't feel as good. It's hard to focus in school. Think about the last time you had to work through lunch. For some of you, this is your lunch break now out on the West Coast. If you miss lunch, you're not as able to focus. We get a little grumpy. You know, I heard it best from a child in 4th grade who had been in a program with after school that did not offer food and then one that offered meals. And I was asking her what was the biggest difference between the two. And she said, do you know what I've noticed? And she pauses for that dramatic impact the kids have. And she says, the kids don't fight here because you just don't feel like being nice when you're hungry. And it's true. We know that kids are struggling to have enough food to make them ends meet and that it doesn't make you feel good. We want to make sure that kids have access to healthy meals that they need year-round so that no child has to try to do homework on an empty stomach or go the entire summer without access to the food they need. So let's go ahead to that next slide. We've brought you the statistics and some of those facts, but let's put a face to the story. We know that in each of our communities, we all have children who are struggling with hunger, who go home from the afternoon at school and aren't guaranteed to have food waiting for them. And if they have lunch at the school at noon and don't get to eat again until breakfast the next day, that is a really long time for a child to have to go without access to nutrition. So this is Alonzo's story, and he talks about how he wants to do good in school, but it's hard to do his homework when his tummy's rumbling. It's the only thing he can think about. He can't think about how to solve problems when his stomach is telling him it needs to be fed. We've got such an opportunity. If you're already doing summer meals, thank you. Thank you for meeting that intense need. But we want to challenge you to consider how you can continue that service through the school year. You heard from Andrea some of the benefits, that you're able to maintain that staff year-round and that stability of your food program when you do it year-round. So let's go ahead to the next slide. So why should you do year-round meals? Andrea mentioned that staff consistency. This is huge. We talked about how we've been planning for summer meals since January. We've spent all of this time building our staff up, training them, getting them ready. But what happens at the end of the summer season? Chances are you lose some of those good staff who knew the kids, knew these programs, were passionate about them. Everyone's looking for job opportunities that can carry them throughout the year. It's a necessity. So by offering year-round meals, you're able to keep those staff, keep them engaged year-round, keep that stability. You don't have to start over from scratch for your next summer meal cycle because you've kept them consistent throughout the year. There's not as much turnover. There's also not as much need for training because these staff have been doing this all year round. Let's talk about collaboration. There's a lot of funding that goes into these meals. We have relationships with vendors. When you're talking about those 3 months of summer, think of how much more leverage you have with your food vendors if that is a 12-month relationship versus a 3. It gives you greater purchasing power and stronger relationships to negotiate better prices so that you're able to serve higher quality food for your reimbursement and make sure that you've got the best product available and are making every single bite count at an affordable rate with your partners. Not only purchasing power, but let's think about community collaborations too. We talked about those activities being required for CACFT, but not for summer. Think of how you could work with community partners if you're working year-round to keep those activities going in the summer, making sure that you're keeping them maintained. And everyone is winning here. It does take the full community to meet this need. We need all hands on deck. We have great partnerships around our summer food programs, and you can have them for after-school programs too. Let's keep those going throughout the year. Kids win when we work together. Youth consistency. Think about your kids. Once that summer meal program wraps up, they've got to find that new after-school site. And then, are those summer sites the same in the summer for next summer? You know, it's hard to keep track of. This helps kids have a consistent source of meals. Year-round, they know where they can get the meals. It keeps that relationship going. You can keep those relationships with your families in place so that they're not having to find the new meal site. They know automatically. You keep that continuity going so families are aware of where they can access those meals, and they've got trusted relationships with you as the provider of those. Also, more youth know about it. The kids are talking about it. The families are talking about where they're accessing this. We know word of mouth is a great recruitment tool for our meal program sites. If the kids are talking about how much fun they're having and how the neighborhood kids should come with them, it does increase. This keeps that communication going and that community knowledge of where they can get the food programs. So right down into community awareness, that stable, long-term presence. We are looking to alleviate hunger consistently, not just the 3 months of summer, but year-round. This gives us a chance to really have that impact we're looking for and making sure that no child ever has to go to bed hungry in our communities. Next slide. So let's talk about sustainability. We've talked a lot about the mission of this. This is the right thing to do to offer kids access to nutritious meals year-round. But as a provider of summer meals, we also know that we have to be able to make ends meet. And carrying these programs throughout the year does create a sustainable program for you to offer this to kids. The reimbursement rates are there. You also have your percentage that you're allotted, 10% under SFSP, up to 15% under CACFT for your administrative costs. These programs make financial sense. They are financially viable. We have so many great initiatives that we get started on, and then when grant funding dries up, we're not able to continue the work. This is a program that without a drop of grant dollars, you can continue and sustain. The funding is there to make sure that these kids have access to the meals, and if you're being responsible with your program, negotiating your deals with your vendor, there is enough here for you to keep this program going all year long. Let's go ahead, and you can see here, just quick boxes. You can see how we've got this laid out. To the right, we've got what those reimbursement rates would be in the bigger boxes for the amount of kids you're serving, and then I've factored out that year-round administrative allowance. That's the maximum, so you'd have to be running your programs very efficiently, but you can see that it does provide for staff time to be able to operate these programs and make sure that it's continuing smoothly all year round. Next slide. All right, so wrapping up here, Thinking about year-round meals, right away, many after-school programs don't have access to the kitchen, right? You're in a school space. It's very difficult to be able to have a place to prep meals. We're asking you to think differently. A full meal doesn't have to be hot. It does have to be 5 components. How can you make sure that kids have something substantial enough to send them home in the evening, that if they don't have food at home, they're still full? We like to call it a super snack. It's a 5-component meal. But it's a little easier to carry. You don't have to have a kitchen. There are options that look more like a snack but are a full meal so that children get that substantial piece. You'll notice here 2 sample menus, one of which is from the La Crosse Area Family YMCA. Jenny Melby is on the line with us now and is going to share with you how she's made this work at her YMCA. And Jenny not only runs an amazing program at the La Crosse Area Family Y, but she does it so well that the YMCA's national office actually has Jenny serve as a mentor to other YMCAs. She's coaching others across the country on how she's been effectively able to make this work and ensure year-round access for whole meals to kids. Thank you so much. The next slide has got my contact information. You can see, you'll notice hashtag the Y Feeds Kids has been on there quite a bit. Ask that you share with us if you have any questions. Please feel free to use that, and you can also see some stories of otherwise in action. Thank you for your time today, and I look forward to answering any questions you might have later. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Stacy, and it's really great to get the perspective of a community provider, community organization, and the success that you've seen running both of these programs in terms of impact in the community, impact on the children that you serve, and as well the slide where you're reviewing some of the financial benefits of the program as well. I think that's a really important piece that you highlight. And we're very excited for our next speaker that we're actually going to hear from. One of the providers that you mentioned, Jenny Melby, whose meal pattern was just highlighted on the previous slide. Jenny is the Director of Organization and Leadership Development from the La Crosse Area Family YMCA. As Stacy said, she is a known quantity within the Y of USA network as a peer mentor. Jenny, we are really excited to hear from you and the work that's going on in La Crosse to connect the summer and after school meal programs, and obviously the great work that you're doing. Thanks for joining us.
Great. Thanks, Derek. It's really great to be here and to share the story. And every time I put together a little presentation like this, I think I learn so much about ourselves, but then I get the opportunity to learn from other people on the call. So thanks for having me. This is one of my favorite pictures on this cover slide that was there, and this is a little boy. And this is an example of super snack, and so Stacy just mentioned that. And an example of supper, as the state refers to it, but it's just a beefed up snack, and we have very low prep and no prep meals and no cooking facilities for our sites. And so a super snack is a great option for us. So you can go to the next slide. I just wanted to take a minute to share about who we are and our organization. We, as you heard, there's so much with CACFP and SFSP and trying to make sense of what program operates what during what part of the year. And so this hopefully provides a little picture of what we do in our community. We really started piloting, serving and expanding our food programs beyond just a regular typical child care setting into the community, and we started that by working on our 6 summer food service program sites. So we're actually the sponsor for 6 summer food service program sites in the summer, and then we've transitioned those into after-school meal program sites through the CACFP. You can see a little bit of a picture of our total number of sites. So we're operating multiple different programs through the state agency reimbursement program. So as Andrea mentioned in the beginning, it's really important to know what the regulations are of what program at what time of the year. But once you're doing one, it's really easy to feed off of and do the other. And so that's why we piloted working out in the summer, and then we said, okay, we can do this and we can expand this during the school year. So as you can see, we have many different players as the sponsor. For many of our sites, we are the Y. The Y is the sponsor, and in some cases, the Y is just the site and the school district is the sponsor. So we're partnering in some capacity. We, as the sponsor, we vend our meals and we purchase them through the school district during the summer. And then during the school year, we are a self-prep organization. So we're the YMCA is the one preparing the meals. We're not purchasing meals from an outside entity. Although, because our relationship with the school district is so strong during the summer, we've started to entertain the idea of maybe there's some financial benefits with partnering during the school year and vending the meals. And so all those explorations come from having great partnerships and great relationships. As you can see, our sites, we have program sites in our community at many different places, at the Y buildings themselves. We have programs at the Y and within the Y where we're serving food. We have a house that we own that's a community teen center. It's separate from our Y buildings, and so that is a really great model that we have for serving meals out in the community. It's a free drop-in program house. And then we've also explored and worked with our state agency to become the sponsor for Boys and Girls Club programs in our community. We recognize that the Y can't bring every child to us. We need to go where the kids are, and there's enough programs and activity centers, as Andrea mentioned, in our community where there's kids, where there's opportunities to feed them. So how can we partner with somebody, an entity like the Boys and Girls Club, where they're offering the enrichment activities, and then the Y can come in with their expertise around food programs and really meet those CACFP guidelines as we need. So this is a little picture of who we are. You can go to the next slide. This just shares with you the number of kids, and for those of you in large communities, you're like, that's it. And in smaller communities, you might think, oh, that's huge. But just who we are during the school year, we have around 1,200 kids a month. And we know that that will grow as we reach out to more sites and expand our program this fall. And in the summer, we serve around 800 kids a week. So it's obvious that there are kids who are eating during the school year and having access to meals that we're not potentially reaching in the summer. But right now, these are our enrolled programs. We know that we're expanding and serving a lot more kids as we partner with more agencies like the Boys and Girls Club. So just some statistics, and we served approximately, as an organization in 2016, over 200,000 meals. And we know that adding the partnership sites that we have this summer, we are going to easily exceed 200,000 meals for 2017. So really important to have goals and have set, know where you're at, and how much more you can reach in the community. You can go to the next slide. The meals we serve, we really believe in complementing what's happening in our community, and so we serve all 4 types of meals, but not every site serves every meal, if that makes any sense. And so, for example, we serve supper, the supper or super snack option at our sites, where they might also be getting close by, they might be getting a breakfast or a lunch. So, for example, if the school district is offering a breakfast and a lunch in an area within their school building, the site that is near there or a program center that is near there, they're going to serve supper, and so that we're complementing those meals. Especially if you look at this model during the summer, there's a lot of summer food service programs, or there's some that are happening within school buildings through the school district, and then there's program centers that are nearby, like the Boys and Girls Club or the YMCA or the teen centers, and that's where we're serving supper. So kids are getting 3 full meals a day before they go on in a service area. So again, the key word is complement. How can we complement each other rather than try and compete for the same kids? So that we're getting more kids, more food on a daily basis. And it's important, the super snack word is in quotes because it is a made-up term that we use, but the states refer to it as a supper or a dinner. And so we call it a super snack because it's a 5-component meal that can count as a supper, but it's more of a snack-like option because it's refrigerated. We don't have to do much prep maybe other than cut up fruits or vegetables. In our association, we believe in exceeding the state guidelines, and we do serve fresh fruits and vegetables at every meal. And so it's so important that you know how to do that and that you meet your health and safety guidelines. As Andrea mentioned, it really depends from summer to school year, all those health and safety guidelines. So it's important you know all of that when you're talking about your meals in the summer and the school year. So you can go to the next slide. Staffing, many of you may be doing other things at your organizations other than food programs, as we are at the YMCA. And so we don't have an exclusive position to food programs. We have some coordinators who might work part-time or full-time doing pieces of our food program, but nobody does it all. And I think that the key is not one person can do it all. And so we have pieces. Somebody is the authorized agent. They're the ones who do the contract, manages the outside partners. Then we have some administrative pieces who are doing data collection, claim submission. You know, they're the master of the program organization of what programs are we claiming and when and during what parts of the year. And then we have some food coordinators and operational leaders. But the key is really that everybody meets with each other regularly so we know what's going on and what needs to be followed. You can go to the next slide. State agency, I think, is a really great resource, and sometimes we don't lend ourselves to them enough. They have great resources. Developing a great relationship and connection with the consultants is key. They have a lot of feedback and advice. And really understanding the programs. I think Andrea highlighted that already. If you can go to the next slide. Challenges to overcome, I really think documentation of your internal operations, and you see some examples there. I think good documentation can lead to your sustainability of operations year-round. It helps you analyze your gaps, and more people have an understanding of what you do at your what you do at your program or within your food program, so that you can manage if there is turnover and that you have consistent service throughout the year and the years to come. You can go to the next slide. And this is my contact information. I work at a Y locally, so I wear two hats. I am a regional food program facilitator for Y USA, but I also work at a Y and manage food programs. So I always welcome any conversations about food programs and love learning from other programs.
Thank you so much, Jenny. It's great to hear you know, the perspective of someone who's implementing these programs on the ground. I think what you said about the importance, this is true with all the programs, especially if we're thinking about operating year-round, the importance of internal communication, working with, you know, meeting regularly with folks within the organization that are operating the program and implementing. And then again, like you said, the importance of that state agency relationship that can help you understand the requirements, help you provide insight with respect to documentation, so that these kinds of transitions really go as smoothly as possible and we're able to reach kids with programs that are sustainable, that are, you know, within compliance and allow us to be successful in these efforts. So Jenny, thank you so much. And, you know, as I'm getting ready to introduce our next speaker, I just want to give a shout out. We have a really strong Midwestern contingent today. We had Jenny from La Crosse, Wisconsin, and I'm happy to introduce at this time Michelle Carroll, who is the business manager with Minneapolis Public Schools, and they have done really great work with identifying a need for after-school meals, connecting it to actually their athletics department. I think it's really going to be interesting for us to hear directly from Michelle and from her experience within the Minneapolis Public School System about how that connection led to expanded access within the district, so and even beyond the district. Michelle, thank you so much for joining us. I am really excited to hear your story.
Well, thank you very much, Derek, and hi to all. I wanted to first start out by explaining, just saying our mission statement for our school district, our department for the culinary and wellness services. Our mission is to nurture all students through access to quality food and active living. And what that means to us is finding opportunities to provide students in our community with access to food and access to quality food, fresh fruits and vegetables, clean ingredients, as well as tying in active living. We partner with our Safe Routes to School program and Girls on the Run, and other organizations within our district to reach all of the students that we possibly can through these areas. Next slide. So again, my name is Michelle Carroll. I'm the business manager for the Minneapolis Culinary and Wellness Services. The business manager is kind of a weird title for me. I wear a lot of hats. I run the HR part of our program, the business part, but mainly the strategic opportunity part, looking for new opportunities for program development and growth that where my passion is, especially in the areas of finding places where kids may not have access to food and getting the food to them. I'm going to focus today on the after-school meals program. That has really been a big growth opportunity for us, and while it is growth in the financial standpoint, it's really been a good opportunity at reaching out to students that wouldn't otherwise have food after school and getting them the food that they need. You can go to the next slide. Before I begin, again, I wanted to provide some statistics about Minneapolis School District. We have 36,515 students. 62% of them are free and reduced. We have a community eligibility provision program at 34 sites. Majority of our district is African American. Then it's white, Caucasian, and Hispanic. We have some Asian American and Native American as well. They're the top 5 languages spoken are English, Spanish, Somali, Hmong, and Oromo. We have a number of other languages, but those are the top 5. Each day, we serve 51,000 meals, breakfast, lunch, after-school snacks, fresh fruit and vegetable program, supper, and summer meals. We serve them at 69 sites. We have 7 high schools, 7 middle schools, 43 kindergarten through 8th grade, 4 alternative, and 2 joint agreements. So we're busy. We're kind of in the middle of the line as far as population school district. We're the 3rd largest in Minnesota, so we think we're pretty big, but I know we're small compared to a number of other districts out there. But we keep ourselves busy with our various programs. I'll transition into our after-school meals program now. Getting started on the next slide, I'll talk about how we started the program. So 3 years ago, about 3.5 years ago, our athletic director, he really had a vision for an athletic college support model for high school students. What he wanted to do was provide dinner and tutoring to high school students before and after practice. What his vision was why he had this vision, or why he wanted to do this is he recognized the number of students, especially in our North Minneapolis community where there's high poverty, number of students, a number of athletes who were hungry and had a hard time getting through practice. The students weren't doing the best that they possibly could do in practice, and they also had a hard time with completing their schoolwork. So he thought dinner and tutoring was the model he wanted to go with. He contacted me and asked, is there a way he can provide meals to athletes, and how much will it cost? At that point, I'm like, well, we can do the at-risk after-school meals program in Minneapolis. This was an opportunity for us. It was about the same time that program became available. So the question was, as we started brainstorming this, is can we actually do this, and who will manage the program, and how will we pay for this person? A lot of concern is resources in starting a whole new program within a school district. There's only so much time a director of a school nutrition program has in a day. So we too have those constraints. So we thought, how are we going to manage adding another whole function to our services? You can go on the next slide. So the first question, can we do this? And an earlier speaker talked about about the eligibility for after-school programs. We looked at the USDA fact sheet, athletic program and after-school meal service, and it pretty much stated straight out that, yes, we can have this. We can have an at-risk after-school meals for programs that include supervised athletic activities. the school districts are also well positioned to offer after-school programs. We're a school district and we have athletic activities, and we're going to be doing tutoring. So it was an ideal opportunity for us. You can see on the map on the right that much of Minneapolis is in the area eligible part where the red dotted area is. So we had much of our school district in the area eligible to be able to roll out this program. In fact, we have 7 high schools and only 2 of them were not eligible. We also looked at if there was a similar program implemented in another part of the country, and there was in Burke County, Georgia. They had a program for athletes there. The athletes were showing symptoms of dehydration and malnutrition. So the program leader there started implementing meals for students, for the athletes after school, and saw an improved performance of those athletes. So this was, we felt, a really great opportunity for us within the school district, but then we had to problem solve, how are we going to do this? Who is going to do this for us? We're adding another program. You can go to the next slide. When we looked at how to do this, we looked for partners within our community that we may have already been working with. We have been working with Hunger Impact Partners for a number of years, and they matched really what our mission was within our own organization. Their goal was to provide meals to hungry Minnesota children. They wanted to provide nutritious food access, and their mission was to change the trajectory of hunger relief for Minnesota's children living in urban, suburban, and rural economic hardship. It was an ideal opportunity. They really, at the time, were focusing on breakfast, increasing breakfast. So I went in there with the thought, hey, can we possibly look at starting a dinner program, and will you help us with that? So I actually straight out requested $50,000 from this organization to support a salary that will supervise the rollout of the after-school meals program. And we were very fortunate. They offered it to us without hesitation. So with that salary, we were able to hire someone who actually was an internal person who had experience with the summer meals program. We hired her on for the school year in order to roll out this after-school at-risk meals program. Next slide. So what happened? This went way beyond our expectations. You'll be kind of shocked in the next few slides of the numbers that I'll show you, but it has been this program has been fully embraced by our community. Our first year, which was in 2014, September 2014 was when we started. And we started with serving 2,500 meals. By March 2015, we were up over 7,000 meals. We had started with the 5 high schools for the athletic program. Word got out, and we added elementary schools and some community sites. Now, each year we will peak. We always peak our participation in March, and then as the spring comes on, participation goes down. So we started with the 5 sites. In the first year, we served 10,000 snacks and 39,000 dinners through the at-risk program, and our total revenue was $141,000. Next slide. In year 2, we increased to 42 sites, including schools, more parks, and community centers. We started the year with about 5,000 meals, 5,000 dinners, and just under 5,000 snacks, and we peaked in March at 35,000 dinners and 15,000 snacks. For the year, we had 85,000 and 218,000 snacks and dinners served, respectively. And our total revenue for that year was $814,000. And again, this is just revenue from the CACFP at-risk after-school meals program. So I kind of titled this Trying to Keep Up, because last year we were really just trying to keep up with the demand for this program. And the next slide, in year 3, we are, my title was Wheels Keep Turning and We're Hanging On. So we have grown to 63 sites. We actually could do more, but we aren't, we didn't have the staffing in order to do more, so I'll talk about that shortly. But in the first month, we started with just under 20,000 dinners and under 10,000 snacks, and we've peaked at over 60,000 and about 15,000 respectively. So 101,000 snacks and 381 dinners have been served through the month of April this school year. And our total revenue has been $1.38 million. So where do we go from here, from this great opportunity that we have seized? On the next slide, kind of what we did, where do we go? What did we do this year that really helped us increase our participation? And I heard this from the YMCA as well. We had also introduced super snacks. We turned a lot of our after-school snack program into a super snack program, which allowed the students to have more food when they're having their snack time, and also allowed us to use this program. And this is an example of our menu from our rotating menu for the 2 weeks for the super snack program. The average food cost we found for the super snack was $1.42, or 36.5%. And it has been 107,000 of the total dinners served this year. And we also incorporate as much as we can, and we focus on fresh fruits and vegetables and fresh ingredients, clean ingredients for all of our super snacks as well as our other meals in the district. Next slide. So operating the program, we'll talk a little bit about what we've done to manage the program growth and compliance. On the next slide, in the year 1, we created, as I said, the extended dining supervisor position, and we provided additional work opportunities for staff in buildings by extending work days and hours. The dinner program added 2 hours per day for approximately 5 people in the beginning of that school year. In year 2, additional hours were added in 20 buildings at 2 to 3 hours per day. And then this year, year 3, additional 40 hours were added to our central kitchen staff to support the super snack program. And what this did was allowed current staff to be in full-time 40-hour per week positions, which we felt was a win-win for everyone. All of our current staff are the ones that benefited from the increased hours. Our total labor cost for this school year was $428,000, or 31% of total cost. And then on the next slide. And then for compliance, we were with the number of sites, we were really struggling to make sure that we were in compliance. We have to make sure we have the attendance rosters, and students sign in to acknowledge the meals received, and we made sure we had that. I put some names that they would put on their sign-in. They would use Superman or Wonder Woman, Bert and Ernie. We've seen it all. And then we had to have someone calculating and recording meals served, claims, and administrative review. So this past year, we created an additional position to support our extended dining supervisor. We created the extended dining specialist, and their focus was compliance and paperwork. And on next slide. So where do we go from here? As we talk, for the current challenges, we cannot find enough staff who want to work to support the amount of requests we are receiving. We have had to stop growth until we can increase our staff resources. So what we've done in that area is partner with our HR department to become very strategic in how we're recruiting and staffing. And we're hopeful for this next school year that we can continue to grow this program. We have also had an additional We also added an additional food delivery truck to support delivery to parks and community centers during the school year. Food truck was paid for through bond money. And then compliance. Even with additional support, parks and community centers struggle with maintaining accurate records, and so it's ongoing training and monitoring is required. And those are the identified current challenges. But I really feel that the benefits of this program outweigh these challenges. These are minor. These are things that we will overcome. And then on the next slide. And we look for more opportunities. We look for partnering with the YMCA and the Big Brothers Big Sisters programs. We want to provide not only the super snacks but hot food at sites that have the proper facilities. We're going to continue to grow our super snack program and focus on our recruiting so that we can continue to grow this program. Finally, we have a website dedicated, a web page dedicated to the CACFP program. It's on the Minneapolis School District website. You can feel free to visit the program under Culinary and Wellness Services, Events and Initiatives. And this talks about, we give some information about our program and list our dinner sites. And we also include an application for anyone who wants to become involved with our program. That's all I have today. Thank you very much. Again, my name is Michelle Carroll. I'm the business manager in Minneapolis Public Schools, and my email is available for anyone who has questions about doing this in a school district. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Michelle, and that growth in your program is absolutely incredible. We actually had a question that came in. We're here in the Q&A session. We had a question that came in asking, could you speak to why participation generally goes down after the month of March in the program?
Because it gets nicer weather here. We're a function, I think we're really a result of the weather in Minnesota, and as soon as the weather gets nice, people go outside and they don't want to be apart in the schools any longer, and most of our program is focused around schools, and while we do have some at parks, we still see a decrease at that time because the kids just don't want to be at school or in a building at that time of year.
That's great. And just want to, for our listeners out there, we did have a number of questions come in. We'll respond to the ones we don't have time to answer now. We'll respond to those offline. Do have time just for one more quick one, and then we'll wrap up. This is, I would say, for primarily Jenny and Michelle. What's the comparison between the amount of time needed to administer the summer meals program compared to after-school meals?
Derek, this is Jenny. Can you just repeat the I just didn't get the full.
Yeah. What's the amount of time that's needed, sort of staff time needed to administer the summer meals program and the paperwork compared to after-school meals?
Oh, that's a really hard question to answer. I think it's just different. I feel like I don't have a number to put on it because the requirements are different. I don't have a number, but I think it's different. I think it's a little bit easier in the summer as far as documentation of paperwork and meals, and it really depends on whether you're self-prepping. So for us during the school year, it's more because we have to do more with the production sheets than if we vend it like we do in the summer. There's less paperwork on our end. So it just really depends on how you operate the program, whether it's going to create more administrative time.
Great. Anybody else want to jump in on that quickly?
This is Michelle. What we've done is we've used the same position for who manages our summer program, and we have over 120 summer sites, and so we have the same supervisor that will manage the summer program who will transition into the dinner program for the school year. So it creates a year-round full-time position, and during the summer we partner with the University of Minnesota for interns that will be working with our compliance, and during the school year we have our own current staff plus the extended dining specialist that works on the compliance for the after-school meal program.
Thank you guys so much for your input on that. And for those of you who didn't, we weren't able to get to your questions, we'll follow up with those separately. Thanks again so much for participating, everyone, in today's webinar and in the entire Schools Out, Foods In webinar series. We'll be sending out a survey immediately following this webinar to get your feedback on how we can improve this event moving forward. Again, I'm Derek Lambert, with Program Manager with the Center for Best Practices. I want to thank my special guest, Carolyn Waite, for joining us today, After School Meals expert. And then also I want to thank Stephanie Eldred for being in the driver's seat, managing all the logistics with this series since January. Please visit our website, bestpractices.nokidhungry.org, for additional resources. We will be sending out a link with the PowerPoint slide deck and a recording of this webinar in the days ahead. Thanks, everyone. Thanks again to our illustrious panelists, Andrea Farmer, Stacey McDaniel, Jenny Meldy, and Michelle Carroll. Signing off from No Kid Hungry here in Washington, D.C. We are excited for the rest of the summer. Thanks, everyone, for listening and for all the work that you do to keep kids fed when school's out. Have a great day.